Pols Kolards tiek uzskatīts par vienu no radošuma korifejiem Lielbritānijā. Šobrīd viņš vada Britu Nacionālo radošuma, kultūras un izglītības organizāciju, kas ik gadu ievieš radošuma programmas vairāk kā 2500 Anglijas skolās, tādējādi aizsniedzot 2 miljonus lielu bērnu un jauniešu auditoriju. Ar Britu padomes starpniecību Pols jau otro reizi viesojas Latvijā un tiekas ar uzņēmējiem, izglītības ministri un apmeklē Latvijas skolas. Viss notiek, aicināja Polu Kolardu uz sarunu un centās noskaidrot, kas ir radošā domāšana, kā viņaprāt tā būtu jāievieš Latvijas skolās un kā gan konservatīvie briti spēj būt tik inovatīvi.
I think creative thinking involves being imaginative and having lots of ideas. And that's the easy bit, because that's the bit people expect about creativity. But in lots of ways, that's the smallest bit of creativity. Creativity and creative thinking is about having lots of ideas and being imaginative and actually being able to do something useful with that. And therefore, there's a whole series of other attributes which come with it, which are as important. They include to be able to take risks and manage risk. They include being able to take confident decisions. People who never take decisions can't be creative. It involves being very resilient, so that when it all goes wrong, you don't mind and you start again. It involves being able to work effectively in teams, because nearly all creative work involves working with other people. And that involves being emotionally literate, to be able to pick up on all those vibes with people and really understand what's going on and be able to work with that and to be able to go with the flow. And above all, it's about being able to reflect on what you're doing, to be able to see it from the outside and understand it and think about it and come back and do it again with the learning that you've got from having reflected on what you did. The world is changing very, very rapidly. And our government in England has done some research, and they've come up with a statistic that 60% of the jobs that young people in school today will do have not yet been invented. I don't know how they came up with the 60%, but they did. But the not being invented is really key, because not only are they not out there yet, the jobs, but the young people leaving school are actually going to have to invent the jobs for themselves. If you're young, growing up today in Latvia, and you've got good motivation, confident, you're creative, you're well educated, and so forth, actually you can do anything in the world. In the old days, you were growing up, you might be a farmer, you might work in a factory, and so on and so forth. Most of those jobs have gone, but you can invent really fantastic jobs for yourself. And that's really, really important, but it's also really interesting. The other big shift in the economic paradigm is in the 20th century. To create work, you needed access to large sums of money, because on the whole, you made work by building factories, by coal mining, by building big ships, and so on and so forth. In Europe, you don't do any of those things anymore. But the other thing is that you don't actually need money to make a lot of money. So I'll give you an example. If you have an iPhone, you can now download what are called apps, applications. They only cost a little bit of money, and they do something, they're bits of software, they do something fun on your computer. Now, around the world now, there are thousands of young people writing applications, coming up with great ideas, sending them to Apple, and if Apple like them, they put them up there, and Apple sell them typically for, 3 lats, you get 1 lat, Apple gets 2 lats, and so forth, and it's all very nice. But if you come up with a good one, you can sell 100,000 of them in 6 weeks. So you have a good idea, 6 weeks later, you've got 100,000 lats in your bank. Now that's extraordinary. That never existed before. And what's really interesting about apps is the whole business of applications didn't exist 3 years ago. Didn't exist. Suddenly, thousands of people earning hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds. And tomorrow, a new industry will be invented by somebody else. And it could be you. That's what's so exciting. In the past, to be really successful, you probably had to leave Latvia. You had to go somewhere else where there was money and there was big companies and so on and so forth, because that's the only place it was. It's not like that anymore. Small is suddenly beautiful again. And if you're creative and you have wonderful ideas, you can live in Latvia and you can make lots of money. I think in Latvian schools you have a huge opportunity to focus the education more on unlocking the skills of young people, and less simply on the transfer of knowledge. I mean, one of the things in the Latvian system which is different from our system is you study a huge number of subjects. You study 14 subjects. We don't tend to study that more, but we have more space in the curriculum to work in depth on those projects, but also to be able to develop other skills. So here in Latvia, you have the potential, if you've got creative young people coming into the economy and creating the jobs to build a really powerful economy. And actually, it's your only hope, because that's the only resource you've got, are your young people's creativities. You don't have oil, you don't have steel, you don't have shipbuilding, you don't have huge factories. It's the creativity of young people. And if you miss out on that, there will be no other job for you, for those young people to do. And then there'll just be a problem for you, because you can't say, well, it doesn't matter if they're not terribly creative because they can go work in the factory. The factories are all going. They can go and do that. No, it's all gone. This is your only hope. What I think is important, and I think this is what we've learned from the programs, is that you've got to create space for teachers and schools to find their own solutions to problems. If you create an education system which is entirely dependent on a command and control model in which people at the centre have all the answers and they hand them down to you, you never build a creative education system. What you need is for the Ministry of Education to create the space for schools to sort the problems out for themselves, and then to give them the resources and give them the trust to be able to do it well. But in giving them the trust, you have to give them the resources as well. The Minister for Education here wrote to all the schools in September to say, you are free to explore these things. But it's not enough just to say it. You then have to give the schools and help. You've got to give the schools the resources and help them build their own capacity to be able to do it. Teachers in Latvian schools want to be creative, but just like that, it's not going to happen. They need to work with people who help them develop that and help them develop that for their young people. So the freedoms have already been given. I think the challenge now is to give them the resources and the expertise to build their own capacity to be able to do it. But I think it's possible, and I think you could see incredible changes in the education system in short periods of time. In the 19th and 20th centuries, we all liked inventors, and we all encouraged everyone to invent. It didn't matter, just invent it. You see what I mean? If it's any good, that'll be fine. What we've learned as we moved into 21st century is you've actually got to have invention with moral values. That you can't just invent anything and work out what it is that you're going to use it with, because we've invented lots of things that we now regret having invented, if you see what I mean. We've got to find a way of doing that. One of the classic examples with this is in connection to the environment more generally. We have to find a different way of relating to the environment, and I think we need creative solutions to that. And the key thing is that creativity is about changing behaviours. It is about a behaviour. The problem with most of the big issues we face in the world today is that we've got to change our behaviours. The problem with the environment is that we pollute it, and we've got to stop doing that. And that's about focusing on behaviour and changing it. And it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. In schools, you should learn three things: knowledge, skills, but behaviours. And the behaviours are the really important ones that are going to dominate the 21st century. Because if we don't start behaving differently, we will all die.